Hi, and thanks for joining. I'm Karen Demers. Happy Equinox. Today is the Autumnal Equinox if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, and it is the Vernal or the Spring Equinox if you are in the Southern Hemisphere. We do have some friends down there. So we're dealing with very different energies. When I was trying to think about what to say over the past few days regarding the equinox, I would think, oh, I'm going to say this, and I would get ready to go and do this recording, and something would say, nah, not the right time. So today, when I was looking at the things I normally do just to get a flavor of the day, I noticed that several people, particularly on social media, were not happy with the energy of today. It was a lot of it's bringing up old wounds, it's bringing up old painful things, or the energy doesn't feel very good, or this is supposed to be a happy day and it's not. Well, let's talk about what the equinox is and what it isn't. We are at the halfway point between the longest day of the year, which was the summer equinox, the one we did back in June, and we're halfway to the winter equinox when you're in the Northern Hemisphere, and that is the longest night of the year. So we're halfway between the longest day and the longest night, which means they're equal right now. That's also that magical day when you can supposedly put an egg on a table and it stands upright. I tried it and it didn't work, but I'll try every time because I'm always hopeful that it will. When we're at this day, it's just another time on turning the wheel. It's another spot where we can stop and take a look at what's going on in our lives, and energetically that's really important right now. That is why a lot of people were feeling kind of stuck today. And I'm going to address us in the Northern Hemisphere first because it might make a little more sense that way. When we celebrate the solstice in the summer, we are all about the light and how it's making everything grow and the power of the sun and light. Where the opposite end of the spectrum in December is all about darkness and turning towards the light again. Now let's just think of it, not as like darkness as being evil, but darkness as being things we don't want to look at maybe. So I think what a lot of people were running into today was bringing up old wounds, but there's a reason for it. When we hit that point in the spring where we turn towards the light, we instinctively want to clear things out. No accident we have spring cleaning in the spring, because you feel the need to get rid of things because everything's new and it's vibrant in a green sort of way. Well, we're at the opposite time now, where we are turning towards, we know the leaves are going to turn beautiful colors, at least around here, and then they're going to fall. Then the trees are going to be barren again until spring. So think of the trees as getting ready to let go of something. I was by some trees the other day and I looked at the leaves and I went, oh, look at that. They need water. They're in distress. I went, no, they're not really. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They are getting ready to make their transition. To me, fall is a very different time of transition than spring is. Spring is about growth. Fall is about letting things go. And think about it like this. In order to have room to gather up the things that we grew in the summer, the harvest, things we have worked on, things we have accomplished, there's probably a few things in there that you didn't get done. So let's look at that for a minute. If you didn't get it done, let it go. Maybe put it in the queue for next year, maybe redesign it so that you can work on it in the upcoming season. But rather than have it sit around and be something you walk around and trip over and beat yourself up over every time, just let it go. That's the easiest thing to do. And fall is kind of all about that. We want to be prepared for the darkness. We want to be prepared for the winter. So we're gathering and harvesting right now. That's what sustains us. This equinox is about acknowledging that we've done a great job growing. We've gathered up all we need. And symbolically, you can do this any way you want. There's many different ways. I'm remembering one time, years ago, I was at a metaphysical church. And we had this wonderful traditional harvest equinox thing going on. There was a table, and it represented abundance. And we all tied these big, thick yarn strings around us, and we tied things to them like seed pods and pine cones and things that to us represented things we had grown and manifested. And it was to tell ourselves, you have what you need. It was an affirmation to the universe. But when I left my little group at the church and decided to run an errand at a grocery store on the way back, and I ended up walking through the Safeway and people were moving out of my way. And then I realized, oh, I'm still wearing my harvest belt. So don't do that unless you want people to look at you really strange. But the important thing is to find a way to acknowledge yourself and those around you for having prepared and having done well and worked on your commitments. But also at this time, take a step back, redesign what you're doing. Let it go. If some old stuff, some old energy is coming up, like old wounds, old hurts, fears, this is a good time to just let them go. That might be why they're coming up. It's usually why things come up, because it's time to let them go. You don't have to keep them. You don't have to agonize over them and rebury them. It's just acceptance and let them go. Snip cords or whatever you need to do and kind of let them waft away at this time. The other thing that I think of at this time of year is this is transition, and we see transition all around us. But in spring, it seems to be a positive transition with growth, and now it's a transition of things going away. Some things are perennials, some things aren't. So if you find yourself struggling, and a lot of us do struggle this time of year, think of the things that go on this time of year. Our children go back to school, or it just seems like a lot of transitions like that, empty nest syndrome. I would see that a lot when I worked the retail floor. People would come in and they were just having a hard time coping. One of the things that I found beneficial is to use Bach flower remedies, and there's an excellent one for transitions. It's called walnut, and you can just look them up on the internet or just drop me a line and I can explain to you how to use these. But walnut helps you make transitions more smoothly, more elegantly. That's not a bad thing this time of the year, just to help you through the shifting of the energies. The other thing that I often find good this time of year is just to take a break. If you can do something different in a weekend that's perfect like this, go somewhere you've never been before. Do something to kind of shift the energy in that way. You can start something new if you want to. You could take a class or just try something you've never tried before. Go to something you've never gone to before. Go to a place you've never been before, rather than something familiar, because sometimes just making that change helps you to shift, and it's almost like hitting a reset button where you can balance yourself a little easier because you're in something different, and then you can take that back into your familiar environment, which hopefully you're coping with better at that time. So if you're in the southern hemisphere, you are walking into spring right now. That has more of a clean energy to it. It's a growth and it's positive. And that's perfect. The equinox is just one turn of the wheel. We've gone a quarter together at this point. We started at summer and now we're at autumnal. Next time we'll do this, we will gather again in December, and that's when we will be at the longest sign of the year, and we'll be bringing light back and moving back towards the light. And that's a very beautiful thing to experience too. But just for today, just breathe and acknowledge the turn of the seasons one more time. All the contact information and everything you need to get a hold of Robert and I is on the page that you're looking at on YouTube. It's also on our website. So if you have any questions, if you'd like a reading, or just like to give us some thoughts of what's going on in your head, that's perfectly fine. Thank you for joining.